This is the third lesson in the Added Value Unit series, which will help you to prepare the work you've done on the Added Value Unit for assessment. There are two options for how you can be assessed for the Added Value Unit. You can be assessed by producing a piece of writing or by producing a talk. If you are producing a piece of writing, you can use the AVU booklet that you've completed to create a piece of writing to submit to your teacher. You should also be prepared to answer questions about the work you have done. This is a useful way of doing it, as this assessment can be combined to gain National 4 writing, so long as it is 300 words long. Alternatively, you can turn your AVU booklet into a talk and present this to your class or your teacher as appropriate to your circumstances and agreed by your school. Similarly, you should be prepared to answer questions about the work you've done. This is also a good way of being assessed, as it can be combined with the unit for National 4 talking. On this slide, we're going to take you through the assessment standards for the Added Value Unit to show you how to pass. The purpose of the AVU is for you to apply language skills to investigate a chosen topic. There are 4 assessment standards that you need to meet. You need to show that you've understood straightforward texts and that you can evaluate these texts, and that you've selected relevant information from the text to present findings on your topic and then respond to oral questions relevant to the topic. You can see that if you have completed the booklet, then you should be able to meet the first 2 standards. You should have summarised main details of texts, analysed techniques and used quotations from the text to back up your findings. The next part of the process is then 1.3 to present your findings on the topic. As we said, you can present your findings in writing. However, you can't just hand in your booklet. To turn the findings in your booklet into a piece of writing, it must be written in full sentences with paragraphs. You should use topic sentences for each paragraph. You should also check that your spelling, grammar and punctuation is accurate. Top tip: the paragraph outline for the Added Value Unit is given on page 13 of the booklet that comes with this series of lessons. This tells you what content you should use for each paragraph. Here's a sample introduction. If you take the information that you have on your topic in the booklet, you can put it into a proper paragraph. You'll see here that we start with a topic sentence. The topic I have chosen to investigate is plastic pollution. This signals to the reader that you're going to be talking about plastic pollution in this piece of writing. You could then go on to explain why you've chosen this topic. This is an important topic as it concerns how we treat the environment. During my research, I found 2 texts that were very interesting. You'll see here that in your introduction, you'll then want to say what kind of text you've chosen, for example, a news article, who wrote the news article, and where the article is from and what it's called. You should do this for both texts. At the end of your introduction, you should then signal the structure for the rest of the piece of writing. You could do this by simply saying something like, each text has its own purpose, audience, main details and techniques that were used to make it interesting and engaging. That then sets up the structure for the rest of the paragraphs that you're going to write. What to do next? See your booklet to start writing the rest of your paragraphs. Remember that you have all the details that you need to create your paragraphs on the following pages. All you need to do is go through the booklet, look at the relevant pages, and make sure that you follow a suitable structure for creating a paragraph that's written out in full sentences. Remember also that you're going to have to respond to oral questions on this topic. To pass the written AVU, you can expect that your teacher will ask you questions about this topic. This could be done individually or part of a group discussion as arranged by your teacher. And if you're working from home, you should contact your teacher to discuss what will work best for you both. The second way that you can present your added value unit findings is as a talk. The assessment standards for the AVU don't change if you choose to present your work as a talk. However, you might also wish to gain the National 4 Talk unit, and so you should pay attention to the following assessment standards that are specifically for National 4 Talk. At National 4 Talk, you must participate actively in straightforward spoken activities by doing the following: selecting ideas and content using a format and structure appropriate to purpose and audience, applying knowledge of language in terms of language choice, communicating meaning at first hearing, and using aspects of non-verbal communication. You'll see that the first two look very familiar in terms of the added value unit assessment standards. You'll see whether you choose to present the AVU in writing or as a talk, that the booklet is really going to help you to meet the assessment standards in terms of having appropriate content. So the next part of the process to focus on is to understand how to effectively present your talk to meet the standards, how to communicate meaning at first reading, and how to use aspects of non-verbal communication. You'll need to do a bit of planning and structuring in order to turn your booklet into a talk. A good way of doing this is to use cue cards. The cue cards can help you to structure your talk. You can use these to prompt you throughout the talk so that you have the key information you need on each card. However, this comes with a warning. Do not write out your whole talk on cue cards. It will be too small to see. And if you just read from your cards, you won't meet the assessment standards. Instead, just use the cards as prompts. Here's an example of what an effective cue card might look like. What you actually might say out loud is, the topic I've chosen to investigate is plastic pollution. This is an important topic as it concerns how we treat the environment. During my research, I found two texts that were very interesting. One is a news article from Bob Smith at the Independent newspaper called "It's Just Trash." The second text is a report from BBC Radio 4 called "What Happened to Our Plastic?" Each text has its own purpose, audience, main details and techniques that were used to make it interesting and engaging. However, you wouldn't want to have all of this written on a cue card, and you wouldn't need it either. Your cue card could look like this. Topic: why I chose. Bob Smith. Independent, It's Just Trash. BBC Radio 4, What Happened to Our Plastic? Purpose, audience, main details, techniques. This means that you can glance down at your cue card. For example, you don't need to write your topic on the cue card. You're going to know what your topic is and be able to say that out loud. You can also say why you chose it without having to read something word for word. But the details that you will want to write on your cue card might be things that you could easily forget. In your introduction, things that might trip you up that you wouldn't want to necessarily memorise might be people's names, the names of the articles, and then you also want to prompt yourself to say, right, what am I going to talk about next? It's going to be purpose, audience, main details. So again, you're setting up the rest of your talk. As you go through with your cue cards, other things I would recommend that you write down would be any direct quotes that you've taken from your text, anything that you would have to memorise, because you shouldn't have to memorise your talk. It really is just a case of taking the key words from each section and then talking. You need to also look at your communication and non-verbals in order to pass your National 4 talk. To communicate clearly to your audience, you need to speak loudly enough that you can be heard. You also need to speak clearly. You need to speak at a suitable pace, not too fast, not too slow. Try to vary your tone of voice. Avoid being monotone and instead just speak the way that you normally would speak to people. Use eye contact. You don't want to just read off of your cue cards. And also try to use body language. Don't stand with your arms folded. Make sure that you've got an open posture and that you can use your hands to gesture when appropriate throughout your talk. Here are some top tips for nervous talkers. You may wish to write on only one side of your cue cards and number them. Sometimes if you're nervous, it's easy to get them mixed up, and this is less likely to happen if you only write on one side. Put a little I symbol, or E, at places where you know you should pause and make eye contact with your listeners. This will force you to slow down, breathe, take a pause, and make sure that you're contacting your audience with your eyes. You could also consider using visual aids. You could show images about your topic in order to divert attention away from looking at you. Many people feel uncomfortable about people looking at them when they're talking. If you're in the classroom, you could have a PowerPoint, for example, with scrolling images behind you. But please make sure that you're not putting your whole talk on a PowerPoint and simply looking at the PowerPoint throughout the talk. This won't work. Make sure that you practice until you know your talk inside out. Make sure that you ask others to listen to your talk first and get them to ask you questions at the end. And when you are asked questions at the end of your talk, say more than yes or no. Give as much explanation as you can for your thoughts and opinions. This is actually part of the assessment for your talk. So how and when will I present my talk? This is something that you need to arrange with your school and your teacher. You may be able to present in class, in a small group, or in front of your teacher. However, if you're unable to come to school, you could record a video of you presenting your talk. Just get in contact with your teacher and ask them what will work best for you both. Good luck!